All right, this is called the Elmer Story. Now, it has to do with a guy named Elmer. He was a Amish guy, and I went up and I was at a big benefit sale, and I didn't know if it was open to the public. And a benefit sale is a lot of times when an Amish person delivers a baby, if there's complications, the bill gets quite high, and then in the spring or whatever, they hold a benefit sale, and people sell stuff. The Amish sell stuff for free to other people to raise money to pay the family to pay down the the bills, the doctor bills. So I was at the benefit sale and I came up on it, and there were some Amish girls coming out. I said, "Is this open to the public?" "Oh yeah, yeah." So and then I asked, and that's when they explained to me what a benefit sale was. So I come out and I'm walking along, and on the corner, or out in the road, is an Amish guy, and he's got stuff in a bag. I said, "Oh, you went to the benefit cell?" "Yeah, yeah, I went to the benefit." So we got talking, and he starts to open up. He says, "Look," he goes, "I'm having a problem in my life. Let me run it past you." I said, "All right, go ahead." So he says, "I'm renting a house to some English. Now, English are people that aren't Amish or Mennonites, right? They're English. I'm English and German, just accidentally, all right? But when they say English people, anyone that's not Mennonite or Amish, you're English. That's what they refer to you. That's because out in Lancaster here, this was an English area. And then William Penn wrote them. He was English. He got the Pennsylvania property from the king or whatever, and he needed people to pay taxes, so he invited the Mennonites and the Amish to this area. So, all right, so that's why everybody's English that's not Mennonite or Amish. So he starts to tell me his tale of woe, and he says, "I rent to these English people, and as soon as they got in the house, uh, they paid for a few months' rent, then they didn't pay anymore. And they kept making excuses." I said, "Stop right there." I said, "You going to court?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "All right, I'm going to tell you. Uh, my mother's family moved from house to house renting because they didn't pay." And I'm saying, I'm from experience. I'm going to tell you, uh, they're going to show up in front of the judge. They're going to pay you some money. They're going to come with a lawyer, and then they're not going to have the full amount. You're going to let them back in because you're a nice guy, and then after a few months, they're going to stop paying you again. So I went through this, and we talked about other things, but I said, "All right, that's that." I tell you straight out, and he agreed with me. Maybe he wouldn't let them stay in the house to leave right away. So anyway, I leave. And one of the conversations I had with my friend Jim, he's in Florida. He's the one that come up and does the train show. He lives across the street from me in New Jersey. I see him twice a year. And he's the only person like left alive that I know. And we're talking. He goes, when you give people really good advice, they don't always take it. And a lot of times it's because it's too difficult. They don't want to do the work, right? So we're judged. I said, "You know what? This is a life-changing moment for me." I said, "I'm going to go find that Amish guy." It's like 6 months later, 9 months later, I'm going to see what he did. So I go walking over there, and I can't say the guy's last name, but in other words, I knew the guy's name. And they're like, "There's nobody like that around here." And then one guy sort of said, "I think there's a guy up the road here that had some trouble with someone renting from him, but he wasn't sure." And then friends of mine nearby, we don't know him. We don't know him. All right, so I'm walking along, and I see a girl out there with a weed whacker, and I had stopped and talked to her because it was a robin. I had never seen a robin weed whacker before, and I got talking with her. She remembers me. So I'm walking by. Oh, and she had a benefit sale also. And I had mentioned that to these people. I said, there was a benefit sale over here, girl over there. "Oh, there was no benefit sale over there." "Really?" So the girl's out there with the robin, and she's waving to me. She remembers me because I walk by her house all the time. I walk over there and I said, "You had a benefit sale like 2 weeks ago here." She says, "Yeah, I have one every year." I said, they're all telling me that there was no benefit sale. I said, I'm looking for, and I mentioned the guy's Elmer, his name, and his last name. And she says, oh, he lives right up here. Just go up the street. He's right there. I said, they're protecting him. They don't want you to know. They think maybe you're a bill collector. I said, all right. So I go walking up there. And I get in there on his property. And he remembers me like right away. And we're sitting outside. And his wife doesn't want me on the property. You know, Amish people are very nice, but they don't trust English people. So anyway, I'm talking to him, and I said, all right, how did you make out with the English person that's renting from you? So he goes and tells me, he says, yeah, they showed up at the trial, and they didn't have the full amount. His lawyer told them to take the amount. They were going to get him the full amount later on. They never did. They're still in the house. He has to go back and take them back into court again. I said, that's all I need. Meanwhile, the wife keeps coming in and out, huffing and puffing. I said, I'm leaving. Nice meeting you. And I walked away, and I learned Jim was right. You can tell someone what's going to actually happen, what not to do, what to do, what's actually going to happen, and they don't listen to any of the advice. They nod, they make believe, they do what I actually told the guy the future. They're going to show up in front of the judge. They're not going to have the full amount. You're going to take it. You're going to let them stay in the house, and they're going to do the same thing to you again. And that's what happened. And I learned that I had wasted my time talking to the guy. And from now, I don't even give people advice anymore. I just like, yeah, that's kind of tough. You know, you just nod. You just learn to do that nod. Yeah, that's tough stuff. Yeah, because they know what they have to do. They don't want to do it because they want to spend the money on stupid stuff rather than paying their bills. That's why I'm being very careful with the people I help. And I double and triple check through other people what their story is, because I don't want to be screwed over by someone else that's playing me, because I am a pretty easygoing guy. I'm burping. I'm sort of gullible, but it was so funny. My friend Jim goes, you know, you tell these people these really good ideas or what's going to happen, and they forget you even told them. And then the next time they meet you, they're telling you the story, and it's still screwed up because they didn't make any changes. And I'm like, well, I hung out with this Amish guy, and then I said, you know what? I'm going to walk over there. And of course, trying to find the guy. Oh, he don't live here. Oh, yeah. So then, a couple weeks later, I go down, and there's Elmer with Mike and what the hell, Mike and Jonah. The three of them. They're looking at me. They know I know them. And they're together. They don't know each other though. But so anyway, I walked over there. Hey, you guys, did you guys just meet? And I was like really sticking it to him. And then the one said, well, the reason we didn't tell you where Elmer lived because I said, yeah, the girl on the end, it cued me into how this works. And then you know, the one guy telling me there wasn't a benefit sale at her house, and yeah, there were 2 benefit sales, and they don't list it online or anywhere. And the Amish show up, and they have everything from glass jars, and they have the weirdest stuff there, and it's Amish stuff, and it's stuff you use every day. And then they buy without guilt, and because the money goes to help somebody that's in need. So they might even buy stuff they really don't need just to help out. So that's what a benefit sale is. But it's so funny. There was no benefit sale here, and I'm like, you know, maybe I am on the wrong road. You know, when I first got here, you know, I'm like, yeah, maybe I was on Old Philadelphia Pike and not on Horseshoe Road. And then I see the girl with the robin, and she's waving to me. I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be good. Go over to her, and she shuts it off right away. And she says to me, hi, yeah, she's out walking today. Yeah, I said, did you have a benefit sale here? She said, yeah, I do one every year. She said, I said, yeah, I was there, remember? Yeah, I got a soda. And I said, yeah, this other guy over there. And I told her the whole story. She told me where Elmer lived. And she says, yeah, they're very protective around here. I said, all right. I said, I just want to ask him. I told her, I said, he's having trouble renting to some English. And I don't think they're going to pay him. And they didn't. But I didn't tell her the full story. but it's so funny. It's like uh, well, I won't tell you that. There's certain things I know that I won't tell you because it's never been in print anywhere. Uh, when you get in the circle with Amish people and they trust you, they tell you stuff that maybe you shouldn't repeat. And I don't use names, but it's still they're very easygoing people. Some people pick on them because they have puppy mills, and they do things that are kind of funny. But it's basically they run their life by rules that are different than ours. And they were invited here by William Penn, the Mennonites and the Amish. They were asked to come here. So when someone starts on them, oh, they're messy. They don't. I said, look, they were invited here. Were you invited here? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, William Penn invited them here. And most of the Amish don't even know they were invited. They're not real hip or up on their own history. Uh, yeah, and then the Amish are basically a type of Catholic. And if you go through the circle, the Amish broke from the Mennonites. The Mennonites, it was a sort of a priest that broke away from the offshoot of the Catholic Church. He created the Anabaptists. They got stoned, they got beat, and then the last I read, he went back and rejoined the Catholic Church, a separate part of the Catholic Church. And then what's so funny is the Amish broke from the Mennonites, and some people here have it backwards, but no, the Mennonites are a bigger group of people. The Amish have inbred problems. There's a whole thing if you really read about it and get the real information. A lot of this stuff online is touristy stuff, and they repeat stuff that's not true. There's so many groups of Amish that have different rules. And I have a go-to guy. His name is Elmer Fisher, and he's not the other Elmer. There's a lot of Elmers. Elmer Fisher is my go-to guy. He was raised Amish, but he never joined. And he's married to a Chinese girl that's actually from China. And I go to him, and he explains the different groups. And they're all in this area, but there's different kinds of Amish. And that'll make you crazy. And then there's Mennonites that don't have cars, that go around in black buggies, and they're old order. And there's so many different groups. And you just can't say blanket statements. And there are people that blanket say. When I first got here, they had these things that look like outhouses. And their party line telephones, they're not around anymore. They're all using cell phones. I think that's it. All right, that's kind of it.